So our next speaker is Holly Varney, Head of Brand Communications and Marketing at Kick It Out. How are you today, Holly?
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan.
Good, excellent. It's brilliant to have you join us. So those of you who follow football will definitely know about the Kick It Out campaign, but even if you don't follow football, I think you'll probably have seen some of their campaigns because they've been incredibly successful at calling out hate speech and combating discrimination and really taking that beyond the football world to have a much broader impact, which has been fantastic. In this session, Holly will discuss the latest on their campaign and where it is in the struggle to combat online hate. She'll also share, and this is a really relevant point for all of us here, how we can get involved as charities, both in public and behind the scenes. So over to you, Holly, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of time at the end to answer some questions as well.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm just going to share my screen. That's showing.
It's just about to refresh, so just hold on a sec. I'll tell you when it's there. I can't quite see it yet. Oh, maybe that's just me. I can't see it, you see. Ah, there it is. It's there now. Do you want to put it into project mode, present mode?
For some reason, my computer decided to go this morning. I do apologise.
Yeah, mine did exactly the same yesterday. It'll be a Zoom quirk. Anyway, it's all there. It's great now. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Hi, so yeah, I'm Holly. I'm Head of Communications at Kick It Out. And Jonathan said, I just want to run through some of the work that we're doing in football as a collective group in terms of tackling abuse in football. So just a bit about Kick It Out. So we are football's leading equality, diversity and inclusion campaign. We campaign for change and do everything in our power to eliminate discrimination, educate communities and inspire a new generation of people in football. So our belief is very much that football should be a game for everyone. So just in terms of what we do at Kick It Out, so we have three sort of key pillars of activity: advocacy and reporting. So again, advocating for change, but we also handle a number of incident reports within football, whether that be in stadia or online. People can come report an incident of abuse to us and we will handle it with relevant authorities. Guidance and education, so we have a varied mix of education programs aiming to educate academy players, fans found guilty of discriminatory behaviour, and various other initiatives as well. And talent is going to be a key pillar for us, particularly as we relaunch a new programme called Raise Your Game next year. So that's looking at getting young people and people currently within other sort of employment sectors into football and progressing their career opportunities as well in order to diversify the face of football essentially. So I just wanted to touch on our fan education programme because it's quite relevant to the work that we're doing around online abuse. So we have a fan education manager that delivers rehabilitative one-to-one sessions with fans found guilty of discriminatory abuse. So instead of banning fans, in some cases, we'll work with the club and the local authorities to actually deliver a session that takes a restorative justice approach. We've seen some really good feedback from this. So obviously we've just put a comment in here from one participant who abused a Southampton player, who says that he's definitely learned his lesson and was massively sorry for his comments and has actually become quite engaged in anti-discrimination campaigns. So there can be some positive outcomes from some of the incidents that we see. We also have a campaign called Take a Stand. So this campaign is encouraging people across football to take an action on making a pledge. So we've seen various different pledges from football clubs across the country, as well as individuals wanting to do more, whether that be calling out abuse that they see, reporting it to us, or clubs taking an action that diversifies the face of their club. So looking at recruitment policies, online abuse policies, that sort of thing. And we've had over 2,000 pledges and working really closely with different organisations to see them through as well. I just wanted to play this video just to give a bit of a sense of some of the incidents that we've seen, some of the people that we've seen engage with online abuse before I go into the detail of what we're doing. So hopefully this plays and you can hear it.
when you receive these kind of comments, you feel vulnerable, you feel attacked.
It is amazing, and why is amazing? It is a great tool that people sometimes use as a weapon.
For people to use it in a negative light is just stupid.
It's draining and just tiring, like seeing all of that, but I can't say I'm surprised that it's happened so often.
I've got friends that are going home and getting abuse and having to deal with things by themselves. It's not acceptable.
The abuse that I've had, death threats, it's just absolutely obscene.
I think when you start getting comments based on your gender, get back to the kitchen, that sounds like that can't actually still happen. It does.
It's horrible in this day and age that we're still having to deal with it. Most players of colour have to deal with that after every game.
People can just create accounts and you don't know who it is really.
It's far too easy to sit back and to send people these types of messages. And when people are sending messages to disabled people that are abusive, and the technology there is, you'd like to think that there was a far better way to remove these type of people from that platform.
For me, these big companies have got to police it better.
There is a lot of money that social media companies will be making off the engagement of football fans.
I think social media bodies need to look at how they manage hate and discriminatory language on their site. The time is now to change.
We need to stop it, basically.
This video with some around there's some cool stuff in there.
Sorry, Holly, we just lost you there. Your internet quality is a little bit funny.
Oh, sorry, could you not hear that?
We got the video, that's perfect, but just as you started speaking then.
Oh, okay. So sorry, yeah, I was just saying that video was produced very much in line with the work that we're doing around the online safety bill, which is why we had some calls to action in there. So we just wanted to keep it on the radar of people within football as well as sort of policymakers and government. So we actually shared that directly with the Joint Select Committee. So hopefully that just gives you a bit of a flavour of some of the sort of comments and issues that we've seen across the game. So I just now wanted to move into what football's actually done so far to tackle online abuse. So earlier this year, we set up the very first Football Online Hate Working Group, which is a group that meets bi-monthly and consists of reps across the game. So we lead and steer the group. We also have representatives from across various different groups and stakeholders, including the Premier League and the FA, but as well as the UK Football Policing Unit and the Crown Prosecution Service looking at that sanctioning piece. Alongside the social media companies themselves, we have representatives of Twitter and Facebook on there as well. We've moved on with the group and divided it into subgroups to focus now on specific issues to drive even more change. We have the project management sort of oversees sort of the actions and everything that we're working across. The enforcement and sanctions piece has been a really positive area of change for us, which I'll run into after this. So that's looking at how do we actually make online abuse have real life consequences, which has obviously been an issue in the past. Process and technology looking quite heavily at the moment at content moderation. We're still seeing a lot of messages that are falling through the cracks that a lot of players and people within the game are still receiving that are abusive. And then communications and campaigns, to really aligning everything that we're doing as part of those other groups and making it easily translatable to the public. So just running through some of the incidents that we've seen. So obviously this is probably one of the most high profile Euro 2020 final. I'm sure a lot of you will have seen this in the news. So the three young black players, Rashford, Sancho and Saka, were sort of inundated with racist abuse after missing penalties. And there was a huge amount of work done from an enforcement point of view. So 11 arrests were made in connection with online racist abuse. There was a huge quantity of social media posts that we saw that were abusive and offensive, but there were 11 that actually made the criminal threshold. You can see the age range is quite varied, so from 1863 and where they live, again, quite a widespread across the UK. So over 200 posts were deemed to be criminal, but it was only the 11 that met the threshold to make it an arrestable offence. And as we can see, a lot of the accounts aren't in the UK, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we still have a big problem within the UK with online abuse as well. So we saw earlier, well, over the past couple of weeks, actually, this case came to light. So Simon Silwood abused a West Brom player, Romain Sawyers, and you can see the language that he used there. And he appealed his sentence and it wasn't upheld. So He's now serving an 8-week jail sentence. This is the first jail sentence there's ever been for an offence of online abuse in football. So we hope this sets the precedent for more cases moving forward. So other bits of work that we've done, we delivered a social media boycott earlier this year. This sort of came about because of a number of clubs wanting and their players wanting to do something to really take a stand. And we know boycotts alone, they've happened in the past, they can't drive change on their own, but they do send a strong message and show a united front to the social media companies that, you know, we're not going to put up with it and we are going to keep striving for change. We had a number of different companies, organisations and individuals that came forward to support. So the joint reach was estimated at 1.7 billion. We had a huge amount of traction in the media, thousands of stories that covered it and a number of reposts across social. And two quite prominent figures that did support were Lewis Hamilton and Lionel Messi, who have significant followings and really helped get the message out there about what we wanted to spread in terms of stopping online abuse. So we called for a range of changes as part of the social media boycott, and these are areas that we've picked up on with the social media companies directly through our online hate working group. So this is a snapshot of essentially what we've asked for, that we found has been a massive issue within football, but also wider, I'm sure. So applying preventative filtering and blocking. So as I mentioned before, we're still seeing a number of messages that get through the threshold of those checks by social media companies. Verification has been an area of debate for quite a while, and we're hoping the online safety bill will have something in there around verification. Real life consequences, you know, as I said before, there's a lot of people think that it's okay to send abusive messages online and not actually, you know, get away with it and not actually be held to account. We're actually starting to see a shift in that now through the first arrest, but through the first jail sentence, but also through other arrests. And there's a number of ongoing cases at the moment that we hope will have an outcome similar to the Simon Silwood case. The warning message to be displayed, again, we've seen improvements there with social media companies, but there are still some that are getting through without warnings. Robust, reliable and quick measures in place. So we had an issue at the end of last year when we were seeing a number of abusive messages, and they were taking 6 months to be taken down despite being reported to the social media companies. So that's something that we've been really driving through the online hate working group is quicker takedown of content and it being dealt with in a much quicker way. And part of the issue there is if it's not taken down and it's not handled, is how do we then get that into the hands of the police that can progress that and hold those people to account. Transparent quarterly report. So we're not at the moment having a clear steer from the social media companies as to exactly what they're doing, what the changes are that they're making, and have been tracked sort of year on year. So we want them to be more transparent with that. They currently publish reports annually, but they're globally, they're not broken down by country or sector. So it doesn't actually give us a steer as to what change is affected year on year. I just wanted to mention this study we supported with the Professional Footballers Association, the PFA, who commissioned a company called Signify to deliver this study. And it essentially looked at abusive messages sent to basically all of the professional footballers in the UK, so from the Premier League, the Women's Super League, EFL, and it was predominantly focused on Twitter because it was an easier data capture to get. Twitter, Facebook and Instagram data is incredibly expensive. So this looked at last season, and I won't go through all the stats, but obviously we can see 44% of Premier League players received discriminatory abuse throughout the season, so it's incredibly high. 48% increase in unmoderated racist online abuse. So again, some of those posts still staying up, which isn't acceptable. And then, you know, 33% of verified abusive accounts have an affiliation with UK clubs. So what we've seen is actually a lot of people posting abusive messages are quite vocal in terms of what club they support, and some have even put what stand they sit in and what their seat number is. So obviously easily identifiable as well. And just in terms of the breakdown, so again, this is looking at Premier League players, but I think what we've seen in the media is a lot of stories covering racist abuse, and there's also, you know, the Euro case sort of brought that to light, but also other players that have spoken really openly about the racist abuse they've received. What this study actually showed is that homophobic abuse is actually a bit ahead in terms of the volume of abuse that we're seeing on Twitter in particular. And we're seeing a number of homophobic reports as well with our own reporting function. So, you know, the spread of abuse is quite wide, and we're looking at a range of issues, not just race. And again, the posts were half from the UK and half from abroad. And the issues with abuse abroad is that the policing system we found is slightly different. So the UK Football Policing Unit are doing some work with some of the countries where there's been high levels of abuse to make sure they've got a bit of a streamlined system. So if the abuse is aimed at a UK player, the UK police will liaise with the relevant authority in the other countries. So there's more work to be done with overseas accounts, but we are certainly seeing some progress there as well. And then just to go through the online safety bill, so these are the organisations across football that we've worked with on the online safety bill. We submitted a list of recommendations to the Joint Select Committee, which were presented by our chair alongside Rio Ferdinand and the FA as well. So we've inputted 10 different recommendations. The 3 that I've highlighted are sort of the ones that we see as priority. So looking at number 1, Parliament has afforded certain groups statutory protection from discrimination under the Equality Act 2010, but we're calling on the government to ensure that the same protection is afforded to those groups online, which it currently isn't. And then looking at Ofcom, at present the online safety bill appears to give Ofcom enforcement powers on illegal harms. But on legal harms, such as content that is harmful to adults, there is currently no duty of care and no tools for Ofcom to intervene. So we're asking them to review that. And then again, looking at verification, we do believe that there should be some form of verification for all accounts, even if that data was only shared with law enforcement to improve some of the sanctioning process that we want to see put in place. But as you can see, that there was 10 in total. And then we also recommended that the Home Office should consider football as a specific priority in a well-resourced crime unit. So we work quite closely with the local dedicated football officers and the UK Football Policing Unit that I've mentioned, but we'd like to see a bit more of a joined up approach to address online discrimination against the protected characteristics. So we feel the Home Office could actually help with resource there and improve some of those systems. So other activations we've done in football, so we've been working quite hard over the last year in particular to bring in our own sort of changes that we can do around online abuse. So we've commissioned a platform monitoring service that is managed by the Premier League, and that's been in place at the start of this season. So that monitoring service looks at all of the profiles of players across the Premier League, EFL, Women's Super League and Women's Championship. So that means that we can monitor exactly the level of abuse that are happening. We can look at takedown times and also make sure that every piece of harmful content is reported as well to social media companies and law enforcement. We've run different proactive campaigns. So the video that I shared earlier was part of a wider campaign. We also did the boycott together, and we're working on a range of different activations upcoming. We've provided different guidance and support to members, including staff, players and clubs, about how to report. So reporting is obviously massively important because it means that we can see the full picture of what people are seeing and what's happening across the game. And we've done some different sessions with players to help them understand what tools are in place on their social media pages to help them sort of block and manage their channels as best they can with the current sort of things that are in place on those apps. We've toughened the sanction regime, so as you can see, we're now seeing real life bans for those who are identified as having sent hate speech. So the Premier League brought in new rules that if you're banned from one club, you'll be banned from all within the Premier League, and that's if they reach a certain threshold. Repeat offenders, there's different criteria within that, but it shows that it's being taken seriously. And then the sanctioning piece around arrests and making sure people are held to account is also key as part of that. As a football group, we've collectively lobbied government. So as I mentioned, the online safety bill has been a huge focus for us. So we want to make sure that online safety bill in its next state is robust and will actually provide the real life consequences for online abuse that we need. And then we've worked really closely with the local forces to make sure all of the incidents that are reported have an outcome, and something actually is changed there. So just in terms of what we've seen in terms of progress from the social media companies, and we've worked with Facebook and Instagram on these as well. So the ability for people to limit comments and DM requests, we've trialed this with different talent and players across the game to make sure that it does actually work for them and does have the desired impacts that we're looking for. Stronger warnings, that's something that again we've trialed with some of the people within football, and we've seen slight improvements there. And then the hidden words feature, allowing people to filter abusive DM requests. So that's been a good step for some people within football. The only feedback we've had on that, particularly from players, is that it puts the onus on them to remove the abuse, by sort of turning. A lot of the footballers get the abuse via DMs, and it's people that they don't know. So there is an option to turn those off. But again, some of the feedback we've had is that they feel the onus shouldn't be on them to do that. And then just in terms of Twitter, so this is an area that we'll be looking to support them on over the coming months. So safety mode, which they announced recently, will flag accounts using hateful remarks, and will ultimately block them for 7 days. So again, we'll be supporting them to test that and see if that functionality is actually something that does work and has the desired impact as well. And then just in terms of our next steps at Kick It Out and with the football partners, so we'll be pushing for our recommendations to be considered for the online safety bills. We're doing a lot of work behind the scenes on that. We'll still be pushing for change via the online hate working group, looking at improved processes, still driving some of the sanctioning pieces that we're seeing, and there's a lot of ongoing cases that I mentioned before that are still in the pipeline that we're hoping to progress. We're trying to align our communications activity across football. There's a range of different campaigns that happen within football. I'm sure you'll see the Premier League have No Room for Racism, the EFL have their own campaign. We want to be more aligned as a collective, because that's obviously beneficial in terms of sharing one key message and using all of those networks to expand our reach. We're looking at an enhanced reporting structure across football. So this is a really key area for us at Kick It Out. At the moment, football fans and people within the game can report to over 100 different places. That means that the data is not consolidated in one place. It's sat within those 100 different places. So that's different football clubs you can report to, the FA, the Premier League, us. So we are launching a transparency reporting pilot where we'll work with 12 different football clubs from the Premier League and EFL to implement a system which means that we can host all of the reporting data in one place, see it in real time, and actually take some proactive steps to look at the root cause analysis, but also analyse the data that we're seeing to give us a bit more of a robust framework that we can hopefully roll out to all of the professional football clubs. We are developing different strategies at the moment to address specific issues within football. So as an example, anti-Semitism is a key area that we're looking at the moment, particularly with some of the issues around the Y word at Tottenham. And we see that translated from in stadia to online as well. So we're setting up a number of working groups with experts of those topics on the groups as well, to align on key issues and develop some proactive plans to address those different issues within the game. With Kick It Out specifically, we're redeveloping our brand, so it's quite an exciting time for us. We're looking to launch it early next year, very much audience-led and a bit more focused around specific areas of delivery for us. We're also building a new digital learning platform for stakeholders across the game, so that will host a range of educational materials and different resources as well. And we'll be relaunching our Raise Your Game programme, which I mentioned at the beginning is a talent programme where we aim to get a range of people into the game to help diversify the face of football. So there'll be a big announcement around that, and we've got some great support for that programme as well. And I think that's it from me. Any questions?
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Holly. Apologies to anybody who is getting transmission from Holly early on in that presentation. Seemed to settle down later on. the video clipped a little bit as well. Holly, are you able to give us a clean version of that so that when we share it with people afterwards, then they'll get the perfect version? Thanks, that's brilliant. Now we've got about 5 minutes for questions here, and I can see we've got a few there already. So the first one is, if we see abuse towards footballers, what's the best way to report it?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So yeah, as I mentioned before, there's so many different ways you can report, and we're trying to resolve that. You can report it to us. It depends. I think the first question is where it happens. So if it's in a stadium, often the best way is to speak to a steward, because if it's happening in real time, you know, we'd want that person to be dealt with at the time. So I would say report it to a steward. If you're at a football match, you can also report it to us. We have an app where you can input all the information about the report, and it will get sent directly to us and we will deal with it. Or you can go on our website or give us a call. If it's online, the best way to do that is report it in app via the social media companies. But you can also report it to us. We encourage people to still report it to us, even if they've reported it in app, because quite often some of the cases do slip through. These do slip through and aren't handled in the best way, and we can offer the victim support, particularly at grassroots level. We see a wide range of cases. So if it happens at a grassroots match, for example, we will give the victim of the abuse the right support that they need and refer them in the right place. So yeah, it very much depends on whether it's in stadia or online.
Yeah, thanks. Now Sam is asking a question that's incredibly topical today. Literally with Azim Rafiq has been talking live to MPs as we've been on live, and I've had a quick look at my feed and some pretty shocking things he's reported there. So Sam's interested in to what extent Kick-Out's actually liaising or partnering with campaigns in other sports, and he's particularly picking out cricket for obvious reasons, but more generally as well.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it's actually something that we're looking at via our new brand. So we have this great partnership with Sky, and it was a 3-year partnership that we signed with them last year. So we've got another 2 years. Part of what that opens up is opportunities for us to work in different sports. So at the moment, there isn't the equivalent of us in sports like cricket, rugby, tennis. So we are having those discussions at the moment with some of those leading authorities of those sports. And our aim would be to, in the long term, build our remit so that we are working in other sports. We are liaising with the different authorities within cricket to see what support we can lend. Yeah, I mean, the Azim Rafiq case has put quite a spotlight on it. I think he made 42 reports and it's only just been dealt with. So that in itself is quite unacceptable. So yes, we certainly want to do more in other sports. It's dependent on resource and funding like any other charity, but that is the long-term aim for us.
Yeah, brilliant. Really pleased to hear that. So another question is, what can charities actually do to help Kick It Out?
Yeah, I suppose it's quite niche, isn't it, at times, football. So I suppose being aligned on some of the campaigns that we're doing. So I think the online safety bill, I'm sure some of the things that I mentioned are probably quite relevant to other organisations. So I suppose the first step would be having conversations about where there might be some overlaps and we're not doing duplication. So a lot of the advocacy work around online abuse and change for that, I think, is where we can really have a bit of weight as a collective, as charities, supporting some of our campaigns. So Take a Stand, I mentioned, that's something that anyone can get involved in, but I'm sure throughout the season, if there's any other opportunities that people see that we're working on, certainly reach out and we can have discussions. But yeah, I mean, football at the moment is an ever-changing landscape. I would say we're looking at lots of these different issues within football, like I mentioned, anti-Semitism. So if there's any charities that have got any expertise around some of the key areas of the protected characteristics in particular, or any of the key issues that I've mentioned, certainly let us know and we'd be happy to have those conversations.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. And you mentioned in your presentation quite a number of resources that you produced. Are those freely available if people who are with us today want to access them as well?
Yeah, so was it the guidance and support piece that I mentioned?
Yes.
Yeah, so we've got different tools that we've been sent via the social media companies, so like athlete safety guides, how to best manage abuse in your channels. So I'd absolutely be happy to share that if that would be useful. But yeah, we're also launching a digital learning platform. So I suppose this is where some of the support from other charities might come from. We're looking to launch that in around May time. So that will be a platform that will host specialist materials on different areas of discrimination, and have various different resources and downloads. So that will be ready about May.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. So that's all we've got time for. So thank you again, Holly, really for your time today. It's been fascinating to learn more about the work of Kick It Out and what you're continuing to do. I think it's been an absolutely brilliant campaign, and I hope it goes from strength to strength and that we can learn from that with what we're doing more broadly with charities.